Hello. This presentation is about the research process that is taken when one is asked to find academic resources for their papers or presentations. This modeling will be done for an English 111 class held here at the Ivy Tech Indianapolis campus. So the topic this time will be over policy, argument, and change, or in other words, when you are asked to identify a problem in your community or in the world and you are resolved to solve it. And so this is a topic that that's pretty fun for us, because not only does it allow us to look at academic databases here on our site, but it also allows us to show off some of the areas that we know about the local sort resources that are here in central Indiana and in the capital city of Indianapolis. So our learning objectives during this presentation is that students will become more independent in the research process. We want you to be able to find information from appropriate sources, and ideally, we're going to start with the library sites. We're going to talk about identifying databases and resources that pertain or tie to the research project. And then we're also going to talk about choosing keywords that represent the research project and topic and using those in order to find the information that you need. The agenda today will be to talk about accessing the library, how to find it, where it is, and what is on the page. We'll also be talking about the academic tutoring that's offered at the Ivy Tech Indianapolis campus. We'll talk about how to identify the databases, where to find them, and how to navigate those databases. And then we're also going to talk about how to know more about the sources once you have found them. So one of the first obstacles many students encounter when they are first beginning the research process is taking the big concept that has been talked about in their class for 4 to 6 weeks before they are given the assignment of writing an ambitious research paper, and taking that and boiling down this big topic into something that is smaller and more personal so that they can start the research. A lot of, if you look at policy, argument, and change by itself, it is an enormous concept to wrap your head around. I think everybody could identify many problems that they see both locally and nationwide, worldwide, and could probably list things that need to be improved. But when you are writing this paper or you're doing this presentation or preparing for it, you're not talking about the world's problems. What you're doing is you're identifying one thing that you want to change and tackling what that problem is and considering ways that you can make it not a problem anymore. And so we use this at the very beginning of this presentation to launch into the steps in just finding the library site and what's on the library site that will assist you. So we always like to take students to My Ivy first when you're looking for the library site, especially for the first time. There are a couple of ways that you can find the library site before you bookmark it or you put it in your favorites. But one way is to go to the See All button. The See All button has all of your quick links or your apps in alphabetical order. If you clicked into See All, found the L's, you'd find both a library tab as well as a statewide library tab. On this left-hand search box, we have library here. So if I type it in, library, I'm going to get two options. I'm going to get library that says nothing beside it, as well as library statewide. If I click library that says nothing beside it, then it's going to take me to the Indianapolis site itself. The Indianapolis site itself is laid out like all the Ivy Tech campus sites or library sites, except ours has been customized for our campus specifically. And so why does that matter? Well, it matters because even though Ivy Tech is one huge college, a community college, every campus acts a little different in terms of what they offer for classes, the timing for some of their offices, and some of the resources that we have on our campuses. And so here at the Ivy Tech campus, and when you're on our site, here at the top, you can see what our hours are. We have one campus as our main campus library. That's here at downtown Indianapolis. And we also have Plainfield as part of our Indianapolis system. We have a couple of tabs that will allow you to interact with our library and tutoring services. If you connect with a campus tutor here, you are welcome to set up your own appointments to talk to a tutor, either in person or virtually. You can meet with a writing tutor, a math and science, a life sciences, or an IT tutor for 30 to 45 minutes a couple times a week throughout your time here at Ivy Tech. All of these services are free. And for the purposes of this assignment or the assignments that are research-based, most likely you'd be looking for a writing tutor. Now, you want a writing tutor when you have your sources and are ready to start the research. So if you need sources, everything I'm doing today can be done one-on-one with another tutor, with a librarian or a library tutor. And so if you connected with us here, then you could either sit down with us either in person or virtually, and we could have an appointment to find the sources that you need for your paper or presentation. We also have an email here where you can always make a request for about your topic and what your needs are, as well as your teacher's requirements, and we can help you find those sources so then you can start to read them and prepare for a writing tutor appointment if that's what you want to pursue. We also have study rooms in the library. So the study rooms are nice for quiet time, a little room to yourself, or for collaboration. We like to point out a resource of the month. We have over 130 databases here at the Ivy Tech campus or within our system. And so we always like to highlight the databases that are used by certain students, depending on what your major is. But all of these have really wonderful information, especially if you are looking for something, if it's exactly what you need for your work. We have statewide workshops and events. If you click on the See More here on our site, then you can see over close to a dozen different workshops that we offer that are about 45 minutes that we give every 8 weeks. These are recorded, and you do get a recording after the presentation, or you can show up in real time. This is a really nice way to refresh yourself on some information that might be new to you, or to just simply learn something new because it's required in your class. Scrolling down, you can find our contact information down here. You can always email us, you can send us a text, or you can call downtown. Any questions you have after today's presentation or after you've watched this recording, you're welcome to follow up with us, and we could always repeat these things or sit down with you and walk you through it step by step. We do have books here that you're welcome to check out. You are part of the library system. With your C number, that is your library card. We have 2 places to find sources for your presentations or papers. One of the places to go is under A to Z resources. If you click on this green button, it's going to take you to all 134 databases that we have here in our campus and throughout the Ivy Tech system. Each one of these, one by one, are databases that you are welcome to look into, and we'll be looking at a few of them today. You can also go to Start with Discover. Start with Discover by searching in this area. Instead of going one by one into databases, instead you can type in your keywords here in this search box, and it will search all the databases that do not have a red asterisk. So that is nice. So that allows you to search over 100 databases, not all of them, but many of them, and then doing that all at once versus one at a time. So this is the library site. We are going to spend quite lot of time here today. But the reason why I wanted to show you this is to go back to what we were just talking about in terms of taking this bigger topic and making it smaller and more digestible. So within our library site, there are actually, there is a database that I think is really good for people who are in the brainstorming stage, and that is Opposing Viewpoints. Opposing Viewpoints can be accessed by clicking on this link here. You can also go to A to Z resources, and you can access it by clicking on this O for Opposing Viewpoints right here. You can also go up to the types up here and click on Argumentative Research, then Filter Databases, and you'll find 3 databases: CQ Researcher, Opposing Viewpoints, and Points of View Reference Source. We're going to be talking about this today, but you're always welcome to continue the search after we've discussed or after you've seen how I demoed it. And so you could always look at CQ Researcher or Points of View Reference Source. We have instructors who love these databases, and you might have one. So that is the way that you access Opposing Viewpoints. Now, once you get into Opposing Viewpoints, there are a few ways that you can search for different topics. The one way of doing it, which might be too overwhelming, but might be actually exactly what you need the first time you're here, is to browse all 492 topics. There are nearly 500 topics that are here on the Opposing Viewpoints site. And there really is a solid variety of things that you can choose from. Again, it has to fall underneath your topic. But if you were wanting more information, just check out the options you have. Ownership of exotic animals, drunk driving, e-waste, eating disorders, air pollution, airport security, food waste, for-profit education, for-profit prisons, foreign aid, road rage, genetic engineering, guns and violence, immigration, students and grades, sweatshops, Taliban, technology and education. All of these are different topics that you could explore either for your topic today or for something else in the future. Once you have looked through those, or if you determine that that's a little too overwhelming, your next step might be to look at these categories as in how they're clumped. I think that many people might be familiar with this because you might stream. And so when you're streaming, a lot of times they will show you, like maybe you don't know exactly what you want to watch that evening, but you kind of have an idea of what kind of mood you're in or the genre that appeals to you. And that's why these boxes might help you, because you might say, well, I am interested in on these few things, but I'm not quite sure if I don't know really how to spit it out, or I want to know more before I commit. So you might want to look at something like laws and politics. You might want to look at society and culture. You might want to look at conflict and diplomacy. But if you click into any of these, say we wanted to look at law and politics or business and economics, that will just take that 490 data topics and just boil it down to something a little more digestible. Now, I will say, since I'm demoing this today, I have already thought about what appeals to me, and I have decided that I want to talk about affordable housing. This does happen to fall underneath this bigger topic of business and economics, but I think really your topic could fall anywhere. You're welcome to click into this at this point, at any stage when it's in this, when it's just lined up in terms of options. But then what you can also do, and this is the third way to find your topic here, is to start typing in, I could just start typing in housing. Maybe I don't know what I want to talk about, but I know that rent is expensive. I know that buying a house may never happen to me in my lifetime. I know that, my wages aren't going up. So if those are things I know, I may not be thinking about affordable housing, but if I type in housing, you can see that this topic guide comes up. So today I am interested in this topic. I'm interested in this today, and I'm interested always because housing is very important and it tends to be pretty expensive. And so whatever topic you choose, there's a few things that you're going to see when you click into it. The first is you're going to see a read overview, which we'll look at more extensively in a few minutes. We also have related topics. So you might be on the fence about what your topic is going to be, or you might say, I'm actually choosing between a few. And here are some ways that you could do this by still staying in the same range. So we have things like the American dream. We have gentrification listed here, government spending, government stimulus packages, green building, green cities, Green New Deal, homelessness. All of these things are things that I might decide to do instead, or I might look into these topics to find other sources. Down here, I find that I have different types of sources. I have primary sources, so newspapers, photographs, things that were sources that were created at the time that the event occurred. You might have some videos. A video could be a source. You might want to look at statistics and look at bar graphs, look at numbers, look at the number of people or that this situation impacts. You might want to look at the news. You might want to look at academic journals. But either way, we have so many types of sources that you might choose as well down here below. But I always do encourage people to go to the read overview part, because this is where you determine whether or not this is something that you want to commit to during your research or for your research. It also gives you some context or background as to what you are going to be learning or knowing about or seeing as you do the research. So if you go over here to the article contents, we have legacy of segregated housing, low-income rental assistance programs, and rising rents and solutions. So we have 3 different areas of the article that we could pop into anywhere here that will give us some more information about this problem. We also in this can see certain things where, what I love about it is they give some definitions of some of the words that we're going to be using. We see things like the U.S. Census Bureau, okay, or so like maybe potentially government entities that play into it. We might be looking at some laws. We might be looking at new policies that have been created. We might learn about some research that's been done, that has already been done on this. If you look at this area, we have things about how many households are impacted by this. So it looks like it talks about what the percentage of people were severely cost burdened. We see how much money will categorize person into low income. There's so much here. And so just by getting this background, I'm able to understand why this is an issue and also start to wrap my head around the severity of the problem. I also have these related subjects. These related subjects can be so helpful, especially because our next step will be to do some keyword searching where I have to develop the keywords. And so you can always go here to look for those. Moving up, we have some articles. Every article is a potential source. So you might find what you need here just by clicking here in this read overview. Now, one of the things we love about our academic databases is the ed tech, or the educational technology that is many times associated with with an article or a database. And so you can always have this translated if you choose. So if English is harder for you to understand, maybe consider another language or your first language. You can make the font smaller. You can also make it bigger. You can change the font. And I want to point out that we have an open dyslexic font for students who need that. You can put color behind it if that will help with your vision. You can listen to this. You can listen to it read aloud as you read. You can also listen to it by itself reading. I think that audio learning is can be very effective. And everybody is encouraged at Ivy Tech to know their learning styles. And so sometimes it can be a solid reinforcement to be listening and reading at the same time, so you remember what you're looking at or the new information you're being exposed to. We also have things like the Cite button. So if you click on the Cite button, you have MLA, APA, Chicago, Harvard. Everyone is going to need a references or works cited page. So if you click into this, you can always copy and paste this and put that there. We also have the capability of sending this to ourselves. So Google Drive, OneDrive, email, any of those will work. But find a way to save all the good work that you're doing, since it does tend to pile up. And it's hard to remember day to day, especially when you're in school and juggling the rest of your life. You can download articles. So if you have your own device, that's something you can do. You can print them. You can get a permanent link here. So a permanent link will allow you to work around paywalls. This permanent link is different than this link up here. So this permalink will allow you to go straight to the article without having to do all the logins. And then you can also annotate. So this is a really good place to just learn about what you're doing. You get some direction. And then once you're here, you can always go down and you can start looking at your options in terms of different sources. Now, a lot of times a teacher will ask their students to find something from an academic journal or something that's academic or something that's been peer reviewed. And so they do this because peer reviewed journals or peer reviewed work go through a scrutiny that can be, quite intense. And so a lot of times the people who are looking at work that is to be published, they are looking to make sure that the information is real, that the research was ethical, and that the writer was going into this with a, in a trustworthy way to produce some work that they themselves could stand beside and say, this is real, this is trustworthy, and this is, it all tracks with what they said they were going to do. And so when you see something that's been peer reviewed, that is oftentimes considered by the academic community as the gold standard and as something that one can trust, versus something that you probably hear a lot when people talk about fake news or people producing different types of work that have a bias or might have some untruths. So if you had that need, you could always go into academic journals. You'd see that these are peer reviewed. Read the titles, see if any of these align with what you're thinking about in terms of the direction you want to take your paper. If you click into this, you'll see that the changes to the font and background have carried over. And then we have something that would eventually look like a pattern. You're going to see these related subjects. You're going to see more like this. So this is a good way to not only familiarize yourself with the background of your topic when you look at the read more or read overview, but also to find some articles, which is great. So once you have done this, once you have found your article, the next step is to commit. Got to commit, because you are in an 8 weeks class, or most likely this is being viewed by an 8 weeks class. And at the most, it would be a semester. But either way, school does end and you do have deadlines. So you do need to find something that is smaller within this bigger so you can proceed with this process. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be looking at affordable housing. And once I have determined that I'm going to do this, this topic, the next thing that I need to do is I need to look at my questions or look at my topic and start peppering it with questions. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I need to really think about what I want to know about my subject. Because even the topic of affordable housing it's pretty broad, and by itself, it's pretty vague. So if you were to come into a library tutoring session and you said, I need to write a paper over policy change, my first question would be, well, what do you want to change? What's your topic? What are you interested in? What are the problems that you see in the world that you want to make better? That would be my first question. My next question, once we narrowed that down, would be, what do you want to know about your topic? So if we're going to be looking at research, the research topic of affordable housing, well, then here are a couple of questions I could ask. So for instance, for example, what are the main causes of the affordable housing shortage in the United States? Good question. How do we even get here? Next, what role do wages play in housing affordability? Again, good question. So we work, we make money, and how big of a deal is that in relation to affording a home? And then my third question is, how effective are local governments in addressing housing shortages? So I live in a community. I live in Indianapolis. So I'm curious, what's my local government doing? Are there programs that can help me? Are they doing things in our community to make it more appealing or better for first home buyers or people who have families or people who are fully established or just moving in? What are they doing for us? So these are all questions that I could ask, and I could ask dozens more. But we have to start off with some questions. And the reasons why it's important to have these questions is because eventually we're going to choose one of them, because this is another thing that you have to narrow down. It's not just finding your topic, but it's also saying, what do I want to know about my topic so I can write my paper about it? So if my question was, what role do wages play in housing affordability? If I determined that was the question I wanted to answer, then that would set me up to develop my thesis, because your thesis is the answer to the research question. If I say, or if I ask, what role do wages play in housing affordability? Then my response, increasing wages and salary are the most effective methods to improve housing affordability for low-income and middle-class workers. My answer, which I'm going to put in the first paragraph of my research paper, my answer, that thesis, is going to be driving the rest of my paper. Okay, so I am going to be trying to find sources that will support that by increasing wages and salary, then that is the best way to improve the likelihood that a low income or middle class worker can afford a house. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. That's my response to the importance of wages. Now, when you think about this, and I've been implying this, we do have somewhat, it doesn't look like much of a triangle at this point, but this is essentially what you have to do at the very start of your process. Think about what you've been doing in class. What has your teacher been talking about? What are your readings? What are your discussion posts? What is the overarching theme for the class? Next, what do you want to know about that, or what subsection of this bigger topic do you want to know more about? We say affordable housing. What are some questions I have about affordable housing, and what is my answer, which is my thesis? This is this inverted triangle that we go through in our minds as we are trying to begin our research process. Now, once we have determined this, the next thing that we do is we think about keyword development. So in a few minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to start searching in the Start with Discover box. After we do that, we're going to move into A to Z resources and start looking at individualized databases. Opposing Viewpoints is a great database, and I love it, and I think everyone should use it as you are in the brainstorming process. However, once you get out of that, a lot of times the research that you do will require typing in letters and words. And so very similar to Google. And so it's very important that at this stage, when we are, once we have determined what our thesis is, we're going to use our thesis to create our keywords. And so if I looked at this, look at the variations between some of the words that I have here. Increasing wages and salary. Okay, so what words do I have for that? I have wages. I have wage growth with quotes. I have minimum wage, again, with quotes. If I remove them, that would change the whole story. We have income, we have hourly, we have salary. We have low income and middle class. We have workers, households, families, cost of living, rent. All of these words are words that tie to the topic. Some of them are synonyms. So in other words, they are the same meaning, but different words. Sometimes they are just different versions of, if I'm looking at low income, I might say, poor if I wanted to, or if I wanted to say struggling, low income wage earners. I mean, there are all kinds of ways that you can say the same thing. And so you're coming up with these keywords because you're going to be typing those in a few minutes. So I always like to do that at the very beginning, because once I get going on research, I don't necessarily want to stop to start writing down keywords. And then once that's done, then we're going to strategically type these in different ways. And so I'll be demoing this in a few minutes. But the first way we're going to do it is the first two types, we're going to go into start with discover, where we're going to take two words and bring them together. Then we're going to do other words or similar words. And we are then going to apply different filters. It's not just language, but it's also punctuation. It's also the filters that lead to good sources. We are going to get out of start with discover and then look at a multidisciplinary database that we love called Academic Search Complete. And then we'll be looking at a subject specific database. And this time we're going to be looking at Business Source Complete because we're talking about money. So it's really important that you know that there are multiple ways that you can find sources when you're doing research, and it will require different types of words and different commands. So let's go ahead and look at this and see what this looks like in practice. Now, we are still working here at the Indianapolis Library site, and we're going to go to start with discover here. And we're going to type in low income and housing. So once I type this in, I'm going to click search. Now it looks like I have a little over 1 million results, which is gratifying because I got results, but also kind of overwhelming because I don't have time for 1 million of anything. And so what I need to do is I need to apply some filters so this makes sense to me. As you can see, there are two columns here. Over here, this is where you would get your ebooks and your books if that was your desire. I oftentimes refer or I encourage students to look over on the right-hand side, however, and the reason why I do that is because of the timeliness and because there are just simply more options, better options than the books that we have right now. Just because some of these topics, especially something like affordable housing, which everybody is keeping their eyes on pretty closely, and they have been for a couple of years at least, because it can be so dramatic in terms of affordability and pricing. You're going to get the most current information by going through a database. Once you start putting in filters on either side, the other side will disappear. So going back to that, that comment I made about many teachers wanting students to get something from an academic journal or something that's been deemed as peer-reviewed or something that is labeled peer-reviewed, you can apply that filter. Notice again, we have over 1 million results. When I click peer-reviewed here, what that does is it gets rid of the books that were over here on the left, that column, and now that 1 million that I have, now it's 217,000, which is so much better to work with after that first filter. Another filter that you're going to want to put in is a publication date. A publication date is typically capped at 5 years, just so you can get the best and the most current information on that topic. Sometimes you'll have a teacher who wants it to be tighter, meaning like maybe 2 or 3 years. That's uncommon, but I have seen that. And I also encounter teachers sometimes who are studying something in class that isn't as timely or isn't as political or controversial. So say you want to know the history of sewing machines, you wouldn't necessarily need to cap it at 5 years, okay? And so, but most of the time, especially during argumentative research, you're going to cap it at 5 years. And I'm actually going to make this 26, so we can work with that 5 years. And when I click include, what you can see is that now that original 1 million that then went to 212,000 is now closer to 68,000 when we put in just those filters of peer reviewed and the publication date of 5 years. Now, once we've done this, what are you going to do? Well, all of these are options for articles. This is an article, this is an article, this is an article. They could all be articles if we wanted them to be. Or they could be our sources if we want them to be. If you're curious on how to access them, I would say what you're doing as you're scrolling through these is you're looking at the wording, you're trying to see where it took place. You might be looking at a specific population. You might be seeing, like what made that research process or project a little different than the others. But you're just kind of vibing off of what you're seeing in terms of the words that kind of align with your thesis that we were previously talking about. And so once you've found something that you like, you can find the article by clicking into this green link, or you can check for full text. If you check in full text, what you're going to see is something that is useful. You're going to see these access options. So a PDF or an online full text. Those are your articles. That is the article in 2 different formats. You're also going to see this references and cited by. And then if you scroll down, you're going to see an abstract. An abstract can be extremely helpful because it will prevent you from having to take the time to read the whole article versus just reading a paragraph or 2 that summarizes it. Now, once you're here, you will see some things. So if we go to this access options, we can click it and see what it looks like as a PDF. A PDF oftentimes looks like it's been cut right out of a magazine with a straight razor. It is typically a little colorful. You'll see columns, you'll see embedded links, you'll see page numbers. You'll see that this is part of a big just set of journals. So this is why it's at page 1265. But ultimately, this is an 11-page article that is a PDF. Now, it does have some educational tech tools. If you click on this quote mark, this will lead you to APA and MLA citations that you can use in your references page or your works cited. If you click on the share button, this is where you can save it to Google Drive or save it to Microsoft OneDrive or email it to yourself. You can download this to your computer. You can also listen to this. If you choose to listen to it, just like with the others, when we were talking about the audio options, you can speed it up if that's your preference. You can also read as well as listen at the same time or listen to it independently. Now, when you're going back here and you're looking at the online full text option, you will have the same words, but as you notice, it's less colorful. We don't have the columns. We don't have the page numbers, but it is the same wording. It is personal whether or not you want a PDF or an online full text. Sometimes only one will be offered to you, so you won't be able to choose between them. But if you are, and you maybe if English isn't your first language, you might consider this one, the online full text, because we have this globe here. The PDF will have the headsets so you can listen to them. But when we're looking at the translate button here, the globe, you can choose to change this to many different languages. Say we talked about Spanish. We had a Spanish speaking student in our class. You could translate it to Spanish in the online full text version, and almost instantaneously you will get the Spanish version. Now, if you go this route, you cannot listen to it, unfortunately. But I guess it would just really depend on what need is more important to you. But this is something that you could consider. But these EdTech tools are absolutely really helpful if you know where to look for them and you know what your need is. You could also look at these two places to find some more sources. So this in and of itself could be one source. But if you go to this cited by one, this cited by one means that one other set of researchers, or these two people, have used this article as a reference when they were creating this research. And so when somebody is referencing somebody else's work, a lot of times that is another point of validation, knowing that maybe this is a decent article that might work for you. You know, if somebody else says they like something, sometimes people say, well, maybe I should consider this more, or maybe I should like it as well because of certain things that they covered. You could also go to this references page. This references page, these are all articles, which could also be sources that you might consider using for your paper, because that means that these people here, when they were writing this or conducting this research, they were going here and here and here. They were using information from these articles. So that too could be something that helps you. So we really like this low income and housing, and start with Discover. It is a lot to be looking at all at once, but if you know what to look for, then usually the process is a little easier. Now, if we were looking at low income housing, another thing that we could look at is we could look at, let's say housing, and we could look at housing, and we could look at, let's see, actually, let's go with low income, a word that we just used, and low cost housing. Okay. So it's a little bit different, just a little bit different than the low income and housing. Okay. So this is a nuance. This is a slight nuance. Now I'm going to go ahead and click search. Remember, we got over 1 million with the first hit. Well, this one, just by changing the word slightly, I got 19,000. Now, the next thing I need to do is think about these different filters that I can put in. Now, in this case, I could maybe make this 20, well, maybe we can make this 2016 to 2026 include. Okay, so that gives us a 10-year range, and that takes us down to 6,700. So we lose over 10,000. Another thing I might want to look at are the source types. Now, peer-reviewed articles can be found in academic journals, but you might have a teacher who doesn't care if you have a peer-reviewed article or not, or they say, you need to find one, but then I want you to find other types of sources. And if they say that, then that means you have many options. Just with opposing viewpoints, we were looking at infographics, primary sources, news, audio. So those are types of sources. And if I click on this view all, I can see that there are many here that in addition to the academic journals. So we have 1249 for academic journals. Well, maybe I want to know what's in the news because that's what I read all the time. So I could go here and click on news, and then that'll take my 6,700 into something that's more like 4,700. Another thing that I could look at are the subjects. Now, subjects are treated like tags. So a lot of us use social media and we add words or so we can make our pictures and our thoughts findable. We've done that because people are looking for our things, for the things we posted based off of our names, our keywords, these little tags that we have put in because we want people to see what we're doing. And so if I wanted to take this number from 4,700 into something that is truly accessible, well, then maybe I want to think about what my topic is, which again, we're talking about increasing wages and salaries. So maybe if I look at this, I can look at, oh, here's low income housing here. I could look at homelessness. I could look at maybe a region. So if I click here, that's going to take that 47,000 or 4,700, and now I have something like 34. Okay. And so again, if we click into this, then we can check for full text. And once we have our full text, then we can access these. Okay. So that's another thing to point out. When we're looking at, when we're doing a search, just a slight variation of the word, and in this case, I use quote marks, that can make a huge difference. And also, by playing a little bit more with some of these filters, I can take something that's in the tens of thousands into something that's in the single or double digits, which again is pretty remarkable when all I'm doing is just clicking buttons. Now, start with Discover is always going to give you the most results. And so if that is too overwhelming, then I suggest that you try Academic Search Complete. Academic Search Complete is one database versus over 100 databases. And once you're in Academic Search Complete, it does have a different layout. But again, you're looking at one database versus all of them. So in this case, if I type in wages, maybe I want to say wages or salary. I'm going to use predictive text. This is something I already know about because of Google. Next, I'm going to type in housing affordability. Okay, and I want to put quote marks around it. And then next, what I want to do is I am going to put in impact. And I'm going to, once again, use the predictive text here. Now, all of these are being joined by something called a Boolean operator. A Boolean operator is and, or not. And we do this so we can tell the computer what to do with these words, essentially. So if I say wages or salary or income or pay and housing affordability, what I'm saying to the computer is I want all of those words to be included, or at least the overlap of some of these words, because the or also kind of complicates it. But we're trying to say, I want all of these words in the same article. They can show up as in the title, in the subject, in the abstract, in maybe in the wording of the article, somewhere in the message. And so I'm saying I want all of those words, and they all have to be there or I don't want it. When I'm looking at or, what I'm saying is I'm happy with all these piles of words. And so they don't necessarily have to overlap. So when I'm saying I want wages or salary or income or pay, what I'm saying is I want all the articles that are about wages and all the articles that are about salary and all the articles about income. And then I'm saying, and I want them to overlap with housing affordability. So it's sort of like a math problem. But when we're talking about, again, and you're typically talking about, I want all the words, and or you're okay with having separate piles digitally of these articles that contain these words. We also use the word not. Now, not is a powerful operator because not says eliminate these words. So if I was talking about, say, maybe I was wanting to know about how veterans are able to afford housing, maybe some of the benefits that they get. So say that I wanted to look at veterans, but I also wanted to look at people who maybe immigrants, veterans and immigrants. And so if I was looking at those, if I wanted that type of data, but all I had found, I had everything I needed for veterans, I could always type in here, I could say veterans. And so what would happen is the articles or the computer would skip over this word veterans as we're going through it. And I could find things about maybe this other population that I'm comparing it to. So it can be very, very useful, and it can really make a difference in terms of, your research. So you type in the words that you're looking for, you show you use the operators that make best sense to you, and then you apply the filters, but you do this below. So say you want a peer reviewed because your teacher wants you to have peer reviewed, that makes sense. You click here for past 5 years, you're not typing in 21 to 26 or whatever years you're looking at. You could always filter down to different publication types, different document types if you wanted, a language, number of pages if you know that. And then you'll click search. So using those words that I typed in, you can see this whole thing that might, again, look like a math problem. This whole thing ended up giving me 34 results. 34, that's what I got. As opposed to the 1 million when I had other similar words in start with discover. Okay. Now, as I scroll down, you can see some of these things might start to look familiar to you. I could always click on show more so I could see the abstract here. I can also access here by PDF or online full text, and I can see this was cited by 2. I scroll down. Ooh, this was cited by 9. I just access PDF is the only option in this case. Cited by 2, 22. Interesting. Okay, cited by 11. Okay, so say that I wanted this one cited by 22. This is a good sign for me. I, as a researcher, am saying, 22 other people use this article, and so maybe I should look at it, scrutinize it a little more closely. So if I want to access this, I'm going to click on this. I can either click here and go into, it would take me to this page, or I can go ahead and just click here, get my PDF, and here is my article. Now, once I'm in my article, see some of the things that are familiar to me. I could always go here for citations, APA, MLA. You've seen this before. We could always get a link here. This is also a place that we could go to send it to ourselves. You could download this to your device, and you could also listen to it. So we did this when we were looking at Start with Discover, and we're doing this again when we look at Academic Search Complete. Now, one of the reasons why I like Academic Search Complete so well, and then you could always do this and you could keep on going through your results. I mean, one good wording, some of you will develop your keywords in such a way that it's ready to go. Everything you hit is just like a possible, source that you can use. But sometimes you do have to keep on searching, and research sometimes can take quite a long time just because it's so detailed, and you might just be using the wrong words, or you might be looking in the wrong databases. So it's just like shopping. If you don't find what you want one day, very few of us just give up and say we're never going to eat this thing again or buy this pair of shoes. We usually keep going. We just go to different shops. And so, or we try it on a new day with a better attitude. And I mean, sometimes that's just exactly what you have to do with research. But when we're looking at this, one of the reasons why I like Academic Search Complete is that it is a multidisciplinary database. I think that probably any topic that you might choose for research there would be something in here. I would say that it could be used by most students who are pursuing any career, because it's filled with a lot of different types of articles. Now, the final demonstration I'm going to give today will actually be sort of not the opposite, but if this is multidisciplinary, meaning it covers a lot of topics, then the opposite of that would be a subject-specific database. And the way that you find that is by going here and finding the subject that interests you. I mentioned earlier that we're going to look at business for me because I'm curious about income, which is money and business. But I could also maybe want to learn about food. I might want to learn about health. I might want to learn about education. I might want to learn about technology. I mean, there are so many things that you might want to improve. We might be looking at, different industries. And so you need to find a subject-specific database that aligns with your topic. And again, as always, your thesis. So once we have found, found our business databases, or we've determined our subject-specific topic, go ahead and click Filter Databases. And now I have 25 as opposed to the over 130 that I had. And I am going to look in Business Source Complete. Now, out of all the searches we've done, you're always going to get the most hits from Start with Discover because of all the databases you're looking at. Then the Academic Search Complete will be the next place where you get the next most hits, because it's so packed with different types of articles. But then the one that will be more streamlined and that you can expect to have the least amount of hits, but not in a bad way, but just more, straightforward, would be something that is subject specific. So going back to low income, that very first sweep that we did, we can go ahead and do our predictive text here. And housing, let's go with housing. We have all these different options here. Peer reviewed, cover story. We can go ahead and limit the publication date. I think right here, I'm just going to do the past 5 years. And I can then click search. Let's see what I get. Ooh, I get 1,800. So that's actually quite a bit. It must have been my wording, but that's fine, because once I'm here, I again have the same types of options. I can access these the exact same kind of way. And if it is a little bit too much, or all I have to do is change my wording. So say I go back here, I got that 1,800. If I wanted to say instead low income and housing, let's see. And then click it. I have 1,400. So every time I make a change, it's going to give me different results. It might get some of the same results, but I'm going to get them. I'm gambling. I'm making a new gamble on what I'm doing, but it's a smart gamble because I'm using logic as I go through it. So finally, before we hop off for the rest of the session, I do want to point out something that I think could be very useful to people who are looking at something locally. Here on our tab for the Indianapolis students, if you look at this local resource, and I'm going to go ahead and just unclick this. If I filter databases, we have 5 databases that are useful for us when we are looking for some local information. We do have access to the Indianapolis Star. The Indianapolis Star is an excellent place to go to for for Indianapolis news, especially as an Indianapolis student. And I can say that they're talking about housing because it matters to people who live here. So if I wanted to know what the news was saying, my local newspaper, if I typed in housing and then I clicked this magnifying glass, you can see that I get 17,000 results. I do want to limit this to full text, so I want the whole article. And maybe I want to look at the last 12 months because I'm looking for a house right now. And so that takes that big number of 17,000 down to 406 results. Once I do that, I can then click into this subject and I can do exactly what I was doing when I was back and start with Discover. And I could click on keywords to help me narrow that down. So right now we have 406. Well, maybe I'm curious what they're saying specifically about affordable housing. And so if that's the case, now I have 34 results and we can see these headlines here that I could look at. If I want to look at it, I could click on this full text. This is the full article. Once I'm here with this full article, I could save as a PDF, downloading it to my device. I could get my citation options here. I could copy the URL and I can print this. So these are all things that I can do from here. I also have other sources that I might consider. Now, these may not come from Indianapolis, but if you're doing a comparison between this city or what, maybe saying, hey, this other place did it this way, and maybe it could work over here, that could make your argument stronger. So definitely consider that, the Indianapolis Star. Another place that we love is Mirror Indy. Mirror Indy is a local paper that is just brilliant. It is just brilliant. And it has so much about our city that is just remarkable. It's hard not to get excited about it. They have things that are historical. They have things that are political. They have things that deal with finances, things that deal with environment, things that deal with, basically the most provocative topics that are going on here in the city. So if you click on this magnifying glass, say I type in affordable housing, if I click here and then enter, then we have 217 articles that have come out in the last few years that are about this city. And they just keep getting better and better. And you can click into this. Now, this does not have those ed tech tools that we like, but it does. But any librarian, any writing tutor could also help you develop those citations if you needed to. But what's nice about Mirror Indy is that it's local and that it is just a strong publication, very trustworthy. And then finally, I just want to point out that you can always do a Google search for a place called findhelp.org. Findhelp.org will take you to a place that we use a lot with our human services students, but this will allow you to look up information, different government or nonprofits that will help people get back on their feet. So if I was looking for affordable housing, I would put in my zip code. I live in the Indianapolis area, click housing here. In programs, housing for my topic, you could choose yours, of course. And it's going to make sure you're a real human. And then what it will do is it will show you these different areas or different organizations that you can go to for more information. So say I wanted to learn more about fair housing practices. I can see where this is located. I can see a phone number here. I can see what their hours are, and then I can see the next steps, which is great. And so you could always use this for your paper. If you were talking about next steps or call to action, you could say, you know what? I know I could specifically go to this place if that is allowed within the parameters that your teacher has laid out. And then you could also use this for life and advise people. This isn't just an Indianapolis thing. This is actually used throughout the entire country, United States. So this is just wonderful. So there is so much I know that we cover in this presentation, but there's actually just, like I said, just tons of stuff out here for you. So once we have gone through all these different ways of finding things, you should be able to find some sources. And then I would recommend that you go and talk to someone in the library. Come talk to our tutors. Let us help you write the best paper you've ever written in school. We can definitely do that. So today, I hope that you're leaving today with with some new knowledge. I hope now that you feel confident finding information from appropriate sources. I hope that you know about the databases that are out there and available for you so you can do your work. And then I hope you understand the concept of keywords and how they can change your end results. It can be very powerful. So thank you for being here today. We do have this library site tab this QR code that you are welcome to scan to take you directly to the site. We also have a way that you can go directly to their tutoring. So please take advantage of our services. We are open Monday through Saturday during the school year, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Good luck to you. Please take advantage of the library services here at Ivy Tech. Thank you very much.